Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Board of Education regularly scheduled meeting on January 18th, 2022. It's 5:32 p.m. and we have a quorum. All of our board members are in attendance, as well as the superintendent and other staff members and our attorney, Jonathan Blumberg. If you will all rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. We are going to move forward and hear from our superintendent.
Good evening, Chair Mahaffey and board members. Congratulations to the 16 outstanding teachers who have been named as finalists for the Diane Kent Parker First Year Teacher Awards. Each year, we honor outstanding teachers from elementary, middle, and high school levels, as well as from special education. They are recognized for navigating the challenges of a new job with grace, skill, and confidence, and for serving as models for their colleagues and inspiration for their students. This year's elementary finalists are Lauren Blanton from A.B. Combs Magnet Elementary School, Amelia Murray from Wildwood Forest Elementary, Hannah Rowe from Sycamore Creek Elementary, and Soren Bradley from Westlake Elementary School. The middle school finalists are Courtney Smith Neal from Martin Magnet Middle School, Dr. Leif Tornquist from West Cary Middle, Denise Bitzes from Salem Middle, and Thomas Fairbairn from Dillard Drive Magnet Middle School. The high school finalists are Gianna Bucciolato from Broughton Magnet High, Kaylee Clifton from Athens Drive Magnet High School, Maya Sinclair from Rollsville High, and Samaria Warsaw from Willow Spring High School. And the special education finalists are Taylor Brown from Buckhorn Creek Elementary, Cornisha Middleton from Carroll Magnet Middle School, and Tamer Mohammed from Cedar Fork Elementary, and Laura Velez from West Millbrook Magnet Middle. The winners will be announced next month. Congratulations again to all of these talented and dedicated teachers for their commitment to their profession and to their students. One of our newest schools, Neuse River buildings, that is, school buildings, Neuse River Middle School in Knightdale, has been selected by the town's Land Use Review Board as the recipient of a Community Appearance Award. This award is a testament to the hard work of our facility staff and architects who design and build aesthetically pleasing and environmentally sustaining school buildings. It also recognizes the efforts of the Neuse River School community for taking pride in the maintenance of their building. Thanks to the investment of our county commissioners and Wake County voters, we have been able to build state-of-the-art schools all over the district that are both high-quality centers of learning and assets to their communities. Congratulations to everyone involved in building and maintaining this excellent facility. The Community Appearance Award will be presented at tomorrow's Knightdale Town Council meeting. Finally, I would like to thank Wake Ed Partnership for launching the Tools for Schools program, a free classroom supply store for our teachers. I would also like to thank the companies, foundations, nonprofit organizations, and individual donors who will fund the bulk purchase of these supplies for the store. The program will start by targeting teachers at some of our highest need schools in Wake County. These teachers were invited to sign up for time slots to visit the store today and will receive more information when the store adds additional shopping days in the coming weeks. More schools will be added over the next few months until all schools and teachers in Wake County are being served. I, along with Chair Mahaffey, other district representatives, including Dr. Martin, had the honor of attending an open house last week, or the grand opening event this morning. And this morning, the first group of teachers shopped at the store on Piney Plains Road in Cary for free supplies. North Carolina public school teachers spend on average $526 of their own money on classroom supplies each year. This program will allow Wake County teachers to keep more of their hard-earned pay while continuing to support the needs of their students. My sincere gratitude to all those who have made this program possible. Wake Ed Partnership will need the continued support of the community and business partners to sustain this effort through donations of new and gently used items and through financial contributions. Learn more about how you can help at wakeed.org/tools4schools. Thank you. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, Superintendent Moore. And for our teachers that go to this space, a lot of times as an educator you hear, oh, well, there's free stuff available, and it's a sad cardboard box in the corner with, ripped pages and folded edges. This is a store that has brand new items, brand name items, and we are certainly thankful to the members of the business community who donated in order to make this possible for our schools and our teachers and our students. I think I've never seen that many Post-it notes outside of an office supply store. So certainly thankful, and also thankful to the Wake County staff that helped collaborate and help folks decide what was important, what do our students need in the classroom. I also want to recognize Wake Up and Read is beginning their book drive. They are looking for sites to collect books to promote literacy around Wake County. If your organization that you're affiliated with or your school is interested in hosting a Dropbox, please go to wakeupandread.org. And I want to take a moment to thank our students, teachers, our families, and broader community members for the flexibility we've had to have this past couple of weeks with this Omicron surge. And just thank you. It's hard, it's difficult, we know it's not easy, and we know having our students in our schools is very important so that we can be with them and face to face. But I just want to take a moment and thank everyone for that flexibility. We know it's going to continue. We're not through it, as we heard from our health partners earlier in the work session, but I think it's important to acknowledge that this is difficult, and also to thank the people for their understanding that this has impacted. So thank you. Vice Chair Haggerty.
Thank you, Chair Mahaffey. I'll keep things brief. I do want to say our January BAC meeting for District 7 has been moved. We will move that to February, on February 24th, and we'll send out more information about that once that's available. We do have our board retreat coming up, and I'm excited about this. This is a wonderful opportunity, I think, to get back together as a board, talk about the work that we're doing, the work that we can do better, areas that we want to explore. And I know the weather is a little bit threatening right now, but I'm looking forward to that and hope everyone can participate and can attend. And then again, I want to echo what Chair Mahaffey had said about some of the challenges that we've undergone coming back to school after winter break, and the staffing shortages we've experienced, and everybody who's been working in our schools at all levels really chipping in, really going above and beyond the call of duty to keep the schools up and running as best we can for almost all of our schools. We've had a couple of instances where the vacancies were just too much to keep everything up and operational. But I really want to sincerely thank and commend everyone who's put in all of those extra efforts to keep our kids in the classroom. So thank you very much.
Okay. Ms. Scott?
Thank you, and good evening. I appreciate Superintendent Moore highlighting the work of News River Middle School. It is a gorgeous facility, and I feel badly we haven't really been able to collectively visit as much. They opened during COVID, so it's been hard, but they absolutely do great. And also for our teachers who live and work a little far away, we're excited about with the courier that will eventually be part of the tools for schools as well. And the last thing I just wanted to highlight was I thought there was a really great article on EdENC about the pandemic EBT benefits. So I would strongly encourage families who could benefit from that program if their students are out due to COVID. Those benefits have been expanded, and wanted to thank the folks at the federal level as well for making sure that we could continue providing those benefits to our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Ms. Carter.
Thank you. I had the honor of visiting Crossroads Flex, and I just want to spend a little time. I like to kind of highlight a few schools that might be a little different or unique. And it's actually right next door here. And I really enjoyed learning more about it and just how individualized it is, and what it takes to make that happen. And they have a board, which I really enjoyed because it had this picture of the students and their pursuits. And you go from alpine skiing to women weightlifting, which I really liked. And then I was like, wow, okay. And then swimming and, tennis or all kinds of pursuits, dance. And then you look around not the classroom, but the school itself, and they have silhouettes around on the walls. And they add a silhouette once a student enrolls in the school that has a different pursuit that isn't already on the wall, if that makes sense. And I really think that's a great way to create a sense of community with a school that's might be a little difficult to do because you're doing so much virtual. You have students that might travel a couple weeks at a time, perhaps a month at a time, and they can come in and they're becoming a part of the building itself in a way, and what their pursuits and interests are reflected. And I just wanted to thank the staff there and Principal Ray for spending a good amount of time with me to go over it. And just speaking of flexibility, you have students that you might not see if they're traveling, ensuring they're still engaging online, keeping track of their in-person hours when they're on campus, checking their grades, making sure they're getting assignments in. And I think that it's a challenge, can be a challenge anywhere, but particularly in that type of setting. And they're doing it and doing it well and helping these students be able to continue to stay with Wake County, pursue whatever that may be for that student, and earn their high school diploma. And I think it's another example of how being responsive to the community and the needs of our students and different programs that might be helpful, that look a little different, and being able to respond to that and give the community another option to be able to stay with us is a great thing. So I just wanted to point that out. And I wanted to congratulate all the mid-year graduates because I think today was the first ceremony for that. And I just want to say congratulations. You all made it, whatever you may be doing, military, career, college. And I wish you all the best. It's exciting. So I was like, oh, yeah, that stumbled upon us kind of quickly. And then in closing, I just wanted to say on Sunday, January 30th at 4 p.m., I'll be hosting another D9 Connection meeting. You can email me for the link, or it will be my blog, D9 Connection. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Dr. Martin.
Thank you. I'll, as Superintendent Moore noted, a big thank you to Wake Ed Partnership. The Tools for Schools store is fantastic. They've done a great job of staffing it. And as Chairman Haffey noted, it's not just a box in the corner. It really is a nice place. As I shared in remarks, they asked me to give a few remarks in support of the board this morning. I share my tinge of mixed emotions. And that tinge of mixed emotions is that we need a store like Tools for Schools, because what we really need to have in our schools is that each classroom is appropriately supplied so that we don't need an extra volunteer place to go to get those things that really ought to be there. So thank you to Wake Ed Partnership for stepping up and meeting a need. And as a community, let's make a commitment to make sure that every classroom is appropriately supplied. I, too, want to give congratulations to the mid-year graduates. Congratulations to your work, and all the best as you pursue your future. As I have done for quite some time now, I want to update us on the COVID cases that we're dealing with. Here in the district, the last week, There were 2,243 student cases, 330 staff cases. That's 4.6 times higher than the previous weekly high. So something that we need to pay attention to. In Wake County, the latest 7-day average data is 2,947 cases in the week per 100,000 population. So that means in the last week, 2.9% of the Wake County citizens were tested positive for COVID.
Public comment is later in the agenda. Thank you very much.
The North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services breaks down that information. And by the way, I normally will not respond to public statements like that in a meeting, but the issue here is not death. The issue is we shouldn't be wanting people to get sick, even if it's the flu. Yes, if it were deaths, if there were a significant number of deaths, particularly a significant number of deaths in children, children are not supposed to die, we would have an even worse situation. So we need to be looking at cases. We need to be looking at infectivity. As I noted in the work session, I think it's important for us to even consider what would be the case if 3% of Wake County's population came down with the flu in 1 week. That would cause significant disruptions to business. All right, the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services data lags, but it does give us the breakout by cohort. The last week reported was for the week of January 9th, for which their average was 2,305 cases per 100,000 population. The 5 to 9-year-olds were 3,265 cases per 100,000 population. The 10 to 14-year-olds were 3,429 cases per 100,000 population. The 15 to 17-year-olds were 3,105 cases per 100,000 population. 3 and 4 weeks ago, the student numbers were lower than the county average and than several other groups. But this week, the 5 to 9-year-olds and 10 to 14-year-olds are the cohorts with the highest infectivity of any cohorts in Wake County. The other thing that we need to be paying attention to is that based on that data, which does lag, so these things will change, but all cohorts except the 5 to 9-year-olds, the 15 to 17-year-olds, and the 2 to 4-year-olds are decreasing from last week to this week. Those three groups are 5 to 9, 15 to 17, and 2 to 4 are increasing. So we may be approaching a peak for everybody, but we're still on the rise for our schools. These numbers continue to give me pause and concern that I raised at our last board meeting, and I raise again, that I don't feel like we're providing accommodations for people who are concerned about sending their children into these high infectivity settings. And this probably also goes to staff going into the high infectivity settings. We don't have to shut the whole system down, but do we need to create options for people who are concerned to voluntarily go remote or have some other accommodations? I really think it's important that some accommodations be made. We're more willing to give accommodations for family vacation and travel than we are for people who are concerned here. The other thing that I think is important to note is that how do we respond to all of this? We need to respond, as the public health staff at our work session noted today, with layers of protection. There is no one thing that will solve everything. There are breakthrough cases with vaccines. Masks are not 100% effective. There is nothing that is 100% effective. But that's why we need the layered approach. There is almost no question, I suspect, that we're going to hear comments about masks. You know, that the masks, the holes in masks are bigger than than virus particles. It's true. Virus particles are generally between about 20 and 500 nanometers. That is smaller than the holes in your mask. The minimum size of a COVID aerosolized virus particle is reported to be about microns. Again, smaller than the size of your masks. But guess what? The laws of diffusion and effusion mean that it's going to block particles. Is it going to block all of them? No, it's going to reduce flow. But then we're also going to hear that, oh my God, it's going to trap CO2, and it's going to not let oxygen come in. Well, guess what? CO2 is 40 times smaller than the smallest virus particle. So if you're making these arguments that the masks won't stop your virus, then don't make the argument that it will stop CO2. Because CO2 is 40 times smaller and oxygen is even smaller than that. So oxygen can get through your mask the most easily. CO2 next. It's a long ways till you get to the other particles. So you can't sort of make an argument that I can't get oxygen, but it won't stop a virus because the particles are just different in size. We need a layered approach. There's no such thing as perfect protection, but masks actually do resist the spread. It's a part of our layer. You know, and I share these numbers and discuss the layers of protection, not as, again, I'm sure we're going to hear tonight, because we're afraid. I don't wear a mask because I'm afraid. I wear a mask because I want to see this pandemic end. I want to work together as a community to help this pandemic end. It's not because I'm afraid. I don't wear a seatbelt because I'm afraid. I've worn a seatbelt all of my life. I have not had a need for a seatbelt in nearly 40 years. But when I had a need for a seatbelt, I'm sure glad I had it on because it saved my life or saved me from further injury. I don't wear a seatbelt because I'm afraid. I don't brush my teeth because I'm afraid of getting cavities. I brush my teeth because it's good hygiene. It's good health. It keeps me in better health. I do the same thing with the mask. I do not wear it because I'm afraid. I do it for my community. I do it to try to end this pandemic. I do it because it's good public health practice. Good public health practice is going to lower our transmission in schools and everywhere else. We've got to get this virus under control. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Ms. Johnson-Hostler.
Thank you very much. I want to start with what one of my former colleagues would have led with, so I can't be remiss if I didn't give you a heads up, that Wake Up and Read's annual book drive starts January 29th through February 28th. So if you want to host a drive or drop off books or donate or volunteer, you can go to their website at wakeupandread.org, and I strongly encourage you to. I could give you all the data points, but I hear Mr. Fletcher's going to make a PowerPoint, so I'll be sure to share all the data once he creates a PowerPoint for Wake Up and Read. But it has been since I've been on this board one of our prize partnerships for our families, and so please, I strongly encourage you to participate and visit the website. Again, I'm going to refer you back every month as well because we're starting a second semester for Wake Ed Partnerships. Partners Read in our schools. So again, you can also go to wakeedpartnership.org website for Partners Read in our schools that allow folks to, one, give books every week. We do it on Fridays to students who don't have them, and you also get to read with them, for them, however they choose to do so. Those two Wake County Public School partnerships, I strongly encourage you to participate to support our students. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson-Hostler. Ms. Kushner.
Thank you. Good evening. And I just want to add my gratitude and thanks to every staff member, every student, all the families, and all our community who are helping to support our schools at this time and have them open for in-person instruction for our students. And just want to add that. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do want to note Ms. Cash sends her regrets for not being able to be here. She is with her family for a celebration, but she will be sure to tune in later so that she can review the conversation and hear what has been brought to the board. So we will now move on to the approval of the meeting agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay. Second. We have a motion from Ms. Johnson-Hostler, a second from Ms. Carter. Any discussion? All right. Hearing none, all in favor of approving the meeting agenda signify by sign of aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? All right. Thank you very much. We now move on to our information items, the first one being our superintendent updates. Superintendent Moore.
Good evening again. I'll be updating the information, brief statements that summarize what happened in the work session today. There were 3 items in the work session. The first one was an opportunity for the board to provide feedback with our partners from RTI in preparation for the work that we're doing around our strategic plan to answer some foundational questions about our students' needs, wants, desires, futures as we move into the mission, vision, core beliefs portion of our work later on with the agenda. We're supposed to continue that work at the board's retreat. The second item in our work session today was some information and opportunity for Q&A with our partners from North Carolina DHHS and Wake County Health Department. They brought information around the current status of metrics with COVID, vaccination, number of other pieces, and provided an opportunity for board members to ask questions, clarifying questions, make some requests around additional data, as well as some more specific answers to a few things that they're going to have to go back and work on. So we appreciate our visitors today and the opportunity to engage with them. The third item that the board had in their work session today was a review of the under-enrolled multi-track year-round schools that we have in the district and staff recommendation for changes for what is now, I believe, will be the 22-23 school year to move 3 of our schools from multi-track year-round to a single-track year-round using several data points that include enrollment, where they stand in position to the CIP, and either new developments, housing developments in the area, or new schools that are opening, or other overcrowded schools in the area, as well as, in some cases, some information that came from the families of students in these schools. So the board will vote at its February 1st meeting on a recommendation from staff to move Westlake Elementary, Westlake Middle, and Middle Creek Elementary schools to a single-track year-round for the beginning with the 22-23 school year. Those were the 3 items in the work session.
Thank you, Superintendent Moore. We have had a lot of questions as board members in our inboxes and in the community about remote instruction. And so we've asked our attorney, Mr. Jonathan Bloomberg, to talk about the limited authority of school systems using remote instruction to count towards the required instructional days or hours that outlined in what is now session law, but we will refer to it as Senate Bill 654. Mr. Bloomberg, thank you.
Thank you. And are my mics on? Okay, fantastic. Grateful for the opportunity to provide some information around Senate Bill 654, which, as the chair stated, is now current law. There's many provisions of this bill, but we're focusing on the provisions that relate to remote instruction. And the starting point on it is, and the key focus today is when is it legal? When does the board, when does the school district have the authority to shift from in-person instruction to remote instruction under the law? And the General Assembly, they put some significant restrictions on a school system's authority to shift to remote instruction. And that's what we're going to focus on this provision. The key is, and we can proceed with the PowerPoint. Thank you so much. The key is, you have to meet the calendar law requirements. And so for you all, that's going to be 1,025 hours of instruction. So shifting to remote, the question is, would those hours count towards your 1,025 hours? Continuing then, the primary authority to do that under this new law is the provision that allows the school district to temporarily shift to remote instruction, and it's for individual schools or classes, and that would need to be on a temporary situation due to COVID. And the law breaks it down. It says necessary due to COVID exposure, and specifically that those exposures result in insufficient school personnel or required student quarantines. So that's a limited grant of authority for the school system to do it. And that limitation, in fact, that provision that allows that authority is only in place right now for this school year. that when the district exercises this authority for, again, temporarily shifting an individual class or a school, that it needs to report that to the Department of Public Instruction within 72 hours, and then, and here's some key language, that the district, that school or that class shall return to in-person instruction as soon as personnel are available or the required quarantines are complete. So again, very limited and temporary, and some legal requirements associated with exercising that. That's the primary COVID-directed provision for shifting from in-person to remote. There is the general calendar law, which does grant 5 days of allowing remote instruction for emergencies. And a public health issue, the pandemic, would be an emergency. So you can have 5 days, and that can include a whole district-wide shift to remote for up to 5 days, but it's cumulative. So if you shifted, say, 3 or 4 days, 3 days for weather conditions, and that came up, inclement weather, and the shift was for 3 days, and then 2 for COVID situation, then that would be your 5 for the year. So those are the two sort of provisions that I wanted to primarily address. I didn't want to, in the interest of just thoroughness, I wanted to just mention virtual instruction, because that is also covered by Senate Bill 654. As you're familiar with your remote instruction, remote academies, and the process that you went through, or applications and the like, for this school year, a district can provide virtual instruction with the consent of the parent or guardian, and following the remote instructional plan that you've submitted to the Department of Public Instruction, as Wake has done. That's for this school year. After this school year, and I think this is some important language, that the only way that you could have a virtual instructional program is if you basically had a school code already put in place to cover that school, and that's. And you would still need to, other than that, you're not permitted unless the General Assembly grants it. There is a provision in Senate Bill 654 that says that virtual instruction is under review, is being studied, and there's supposed to be a report out in March of this year from a working group regarding virtual instruction. So a little bit of stay tuned on that. So, I mean, that's what I wanted to review with you all. You can see the primary conclusions. You do have a board policy on it. Just to be clear, you first have to have the authority under the law to be able to shift to or use remote instruction. When that's in place, then your policy would kick in. The policy does allow the superintendent to do it, but if it's going to be on any kind of ongoing basis, that would require board approval. Of course, the law would limit it as well in terms of any kind of ongoing basis, and there's provisions in your policy about providing notice to the board. So those are that's the presentation. The conclusions are listed on there. I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Are there questions from board members on this information item? Ms. Kushner.
Thank you. I wanted to see if Superintendent Moore could tell us where we are on banked time. Do we have some banked hours in the bank?
We have had a practice for a number of years now, going back 6 years, maybe or more, of ensuring that all of our schools have what the equivalent of 3 days worth of banked hours that can be used so that we meet the minimum threshold of 1,025. That has allowed us over the years, when we had a weather day or another situation, to close school for students for the day, but still have the required number of instructions so that the day did not have to be made up. That's what the banked hours are for. We did have all of our schools continue to build into their daily schedules 3 days worth of bank time. We have used 1 day of bank time so far this year, so we have 2 days remaining of bank time that we could use moving forward.
And recognizing that we have January and February still ahead of
Correct.
us with some inclement weather.
And,
but thank you.
Yes, and we have used the bank time. Generally, we use them for weather situations.
Thank you.
Further questions? Mr. Blumberg, I did have one.
Sure.
When you say cumulative, and I'm asking because we've had a few classes that have had to go to remote, it's that piece. So if the district were to go remote on top of those classes that had already been remote, that's adding to those students' cumulative hours for their class. So the 5 days, they've already spent 3, and then the district does 3, then they're over by 1 day, correct? I'm just making sure that there's
No, so if
clarity.
there is a shift to remote based on a temporary basis for COVID reasons, necessary for COVID reasons, the 5 days that does not count towards your 5 days. So that could happen, and if it, it's temporary, and as soon as staff is back in place, the quarantines are resolved, then you need to come back in actively and in person in that situation. But those hours would not count against the 5. The 5 are separate, standalone emergency hours.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate the clarification. Yep,
Sorry, Mr.
No problem.
they're coming at the last minute.
No,
I apologize, Mr.
my
Blumberg.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Chair Mahaffey's comment inspired another question. So under your interpretation of 654, Senate Bill 654, will we be able to offer the virtual academy in its current form next school year?
No.
No, that's correct. No.
You would not be able to offer it in its current form. That the provisions quoted in there about if you have a school number that's been established through DPI by the deadline, that those could be considered to be virtual schools where the primary form of instruction needs to be virtual at those schools. So it's essentially a virtual school. But as it was constituted this year in the Wake County schools within schools of allowing virtual instruction, that is a limited 1-year grant for this school year and is not in place at this time for the upcoming school year.
Thank you, Mr. Blumberg. And so just a quick follow-up then to Superintendent Moore. The approach of that deadline, I assume, is coming up soon, or how much time will we have if there is any sort of additional virtual option for next year, either like a standalone school or something like that would need to be set up?
We do have an update to the board scheduled sometime in the next month or so,
Okay.
next maybe early spring, on the status of what options would look like for next year. But Mr. Blumberg is correct. The school within a school options that we've had where students have been able to maintain their relationship with their base school as a part of being in a virtual option is not an option for the 22-23 school year.
But it sounds like that planning work is going on now.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not going to leave this time until I'm sure.
I'm going to do one more look.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Blumberg.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, we are now moving on to public comment. Properly worn face coverings are required for those attending Board of Education meetings. If you are unable to wear a face covering because of a disability, you may watch the live stream of board meetings or listen by phone. During the public comment session, you may speak for up to 3 minutes. You'll see a yellow light at the podium when you have 30 seconds remaining and a red light when your time is up. Speakers are welcome to offer comments or criticism directed at substantive ideas, actions, or procedures of the board and individual board members. In the interest of maintaining civility and decorum, however, speakers are encouraged to refrain from personal attacks and insults directed at the board, individual board members, staff, or members of the general public. The laws and policy of North Carolina provide that these issues or concerns involving individual personnel matters are confidential and therefore not appropriate for the public comment settings. Concerns related to personnel issues may be addressed through applicable WCPSS personnel, the grievance policy, or other applicable policies. Speakers, including students, may discuss issues and matters of general concern, but should refrain from discussing confidential student information. Concerns related to confidential student matters may be addressed through applicable WCPSS personnel, the grievance policy, or other applicable policies. The following citizens have submitted comments as part of our public comment portion for this evening's agenda. Their comments are linked on the same online agenda that we are using for tonight's meeting. That agenda, as well as guidelines for those wishing to submit comments for future meetings, can be found at the school district's website, wcpss.net, under the tab labeled School Board. We have 13 written comments from members of the public. The topics are as follows. 2 speakers on COVID preventative measures, including mask mandate, support, and opposing. 3 on social media comments, and 7 in a variety of topics ranging from athletics, board questions on candidate selection, masks, attending board meetings, calendar changes, balancing public health and academic needs, and informed consent for medical therapies. At this time, we will begin the in-person public comment speakers and begin with Steve Lauderdale.
Thank you. I decided to be very brief. Your work session today was very informative. Thank you, and to your staff. I really want to wish the board, Superintendent Moore, and all the employees of the system, best wishes for 2022. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Carrie Bly.
Hello again. We are still here reminding you of the need for clear, organized math resources in your middle and high school math classes. One of the best pieces of advice we have ever received is to never bring forth an issue to school administration that you could not control or that you could not solve. I think you tune Pete and I out because you think you can't solve the problem that we have, and I keep coming here because I think you can. The following is an important piece of history that you should have been capable of communicating to us from the very beginning. It's from a list of recommendations by the E-Learning Commission, and it reads as follows. North Carolina should consider the timeline for the adoption of Common Core standards and assessments as they consider the adoption and purchasing of mathematics and English textbooks. There is a major national effort underway to develop high-quality digital resources aligned with the Common Core standards that will replace traditional textbooks. I'm going to paraphrase the next part. We recommend that local school districts be allowed to carry over funding across years for new mathematics and English curriculums until the products being developed by the Bill Gates and Pearson Foundation, other publishers, and other organizations, and perhaps state consortia developing innovative materials become available. And they all thought that would happen by the year 2014. The roadmap laid out perfectly illustrates what has happened in this school district. It's like you followed it to a T. It explains historical actions of North Carolina education initiatives and legislative agendas. The adults in the room have been waiting and seeing if other publishers or other organizations would come along and solve the problem of translating Common Core math standard for you. And when the innovation took too long and the sand was running out of the hourglass, you had to pull the trigger and purchase something. But I keep asking you, did you do something amazing? Because the larger question is, did you purchase a trusted math resource that kids can learn from, or did you purchase Common Core prototypes? Because it was part of a roadmap, because your friends were doing it, because you promised you would, or worse still, because you needed to look like you were doing something. And I don't want to believe that, but that is what the history shows. We understand that you cannot control or change the North Carolina standards. We understand that you cannot change the sequencing. You're actually one of only 2 states in the entire United States that cannot control the sequencing of your math. However, what you can control is the usability, comprehensive nature, and quality of the math resources that you put in front of my children, because our kids are stuck with confusing Frankenstein resources, not quite digital yet, not visual print of yesteryears, and none of it comes even close to giving students a fraction of a chance to take ownership of their own math comprehension. And I still don't know how you did it, but we have actually taken math away from these students. Kids may not be performing poorly in math because they are inept. They may simply be performing poorly because they are disorganized, because you are disorganized, because I'm disorganized as a parent. And we continue to respectfully ask you to start providing such resources to your teachers and students, because we're all tired of waiting and seeing. And we hope that you are too.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Reynaldo Olvaria.
How y'all doing? Thank y'all for the work that you do. I was here during the prior session, and I realized I don't know how y'all do it. Y'all sit down for that many amount of hours without a break, but I'm here because I want to emphasize that when you go into your retreat and having all the meetings, that you tackle the issue of making sure, for example, I looked over some of the videos of these meetings and so forth. I haven't seen any translators or disabled interpreters, with the signage and whatever. So I just want to make sure that you make an effort to include two populations in your future meetings. And that's based on my limited amount of attending these meetings, seeing and looking around and seeing if there's any interpreters around or translators, and I haven't seen none. So I just want to make sure that when you do your future planning, that you include those two populations. And for example, I live in Wendell, and in Carver Elementary, I think they got like a 40% student ratio of Hispanics, so that's significant, So just consider that. Thank you again for your work, your hard work, and if you can, a little bit more organization when you have the little hecklers around. But thank you. God bless.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Julie Page.
Hi, my name is Julie Page. I am the chapter chair of Moms for Liberty in Wake County. I am here to speak about sexually inappropriate content available to minors in schools. I submitted a formal grievance about this on November 30th. I had a conference call with Marlo Gaddis on December 20th, and I have not heard back since. You are all aware of the obscene books that are physically present in school and classroom libraries, as well as electronically available on school-issued devices. Wake County Public School System can no longer plead ignorance to this fact. North Carolina General Statute 14-190.1 orders that dissemination of obscene writing with offensive sexual conduct is unlawful. The judgment of these materials is held to a higher standard when children are the audience. Sexual conduct includes vaginal, anal, or oral intercourse that is actual or simulated, normal or perverted, masturbation, excretory functions, or lewd exhibition of uncovered genitals, an act that depicts torture, physical restraint, or flagellation of a nude person. Here are some titles of vulgar material that parents may not be aware of. Almost Perfect, Breathless, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, Out of Darkness, What Girls Are Made Of. All of those books have some form of sex, oral sex, hand jobs, orgasm, masturbation, popping cherries, lewd acts, vulgar language, adult to child rape. An exemption to schools and school associates regarding criminal charges does not make these books acceptable. So what are you going to do about this problem? Because it is a problem for many parents sitting right here in this room and watching this meeting online right now. Moms for Liberty does not want to ban books. However, obscene materials of any type should require express and fully informed parental consent. Express means in writing, in person, with a photo ID, so a child cannot forge a signature. Fully informed means direct quotes and passages of the illicit language in the physical book to review. We are asking for the board to show that you care about all children and all parents in the school system, not just those with an extreme view. Don't all good and responsible parents place filters on the internet, look at movie and game ratings, check song lyrics for their children? By requiring parental consent for minors, you can show us that children matter, parents matter, and choice matters. Do the right thing on this, and maybe, just maybe, you can save your seat in November.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Katie Long. Katie Long.
Yep, got papers and papers and papers. I am here tonight for a new reason. I'm here to inform you of the 26 laws that you, every single one of you, have violated both state, federal, and international laws. Not to mention, you've also violated the Wake County Commissioner's orders. You'll want to pay attention and hear what I have to say. A public official bond is a type of surety bond that serves as a statutory obligation, requiring faithful performance, fidelity, and integrity of a public official's duties to the public. This bond is one of the oldest forms of written guarantee that requires persons to obtain to qualify for office. I bet you didn't know that, huh? You are bonded insured and are carrying individual liability insurance. So if you're in acting capacity as a public official, you are causing if you cause wrong or harm, we the people have a recourse and can hold you accountable. You have violated your oath of office. I, along with other parents, are serving each and one of you a letter of intent to file a public official surety liability claim and intent to file color of law. You each have been served with a letter of intent, which we will file if the following conditions are not corrected within 72 hours, or you can vote at the end of the meeting. Those violations need to be corrected are: remove the mask mandate now. Remove all the offensive material from school libraries and all premises immediately. Yeah, you're smiling over there, huh? Stop all PCR testing in all public schools and districts. Parents will have the rights to review all material that is taught in public schools. And any material that you wish to introduce, that needs our approval. And last, the federal funds that you received, the ESSER 3, you either return it to the federal government or you use those funds to help our children who are failing in school to hire tutors. You have violated 26 state laws, and the letter of intent will cover those laws, North Carolina laws, the international laws, and the federal laws. And let me just tell you a couple of federal laws. Civil action for deprivation of rights and the conspiracy to interfere with civil rights. If I can have security, ma'am, serve the letter of intent to each board. Amen. No, I do not. That's not how it works. I know my law. So if you're not going to serve them, I will serve them.
Yeah, and I'm happy to help.
Ms. Long, you may give them to our attorney. Thank you. Ms. Long, excuse me.
She pays your paycheck, so she should have the
It's time for
ability
y'all
to
to
do that.
listen.
She pays your paycheck, she can actually fire you today, okay? And we'll support you and we'll stand with you. You treat her like a criminal, she's giving you something you deserve.
Ms. Long, thank
She's been asked to go back to the podium and not hand material out.
This is not.
You're not hurting anybody.
Yes.
Okay, you're not abusing anyone. But her kids are being abused by you. Good job, Katie.
Thank you.
Katie.
Don't make me
Our
come back
next
here.
speaker is Dr. Chad Slotta. Dr. Chad Slotta.
Exactly. They don't like it. At least you're safe.
Madam Superintendent, members of the board, tonight I rise on behalf of my 3 children to appeal a Cary High School Review Committee's decision to deny my request that the book Lawn Boy by Jonathan Evison be removed from the school's library because it contains sexually explicit and objectively obscene material. You should know that on January the 12th, the Central Instructional Materials Advisory Committee voted 6-1 to support the school's decision in response to my appeal to that body. So per policy 1316, I will appeal this decision, but I thought it important to respond publicly and afford you the opportunity to hear passages directly from the book in the event you haven't had the chance to read it. And first, let me say that whether or not a book is assigned reading, when a book is curated into a school library, that constitutes approval by the school for the book's content and an implicit recommendation for students to read the material. And so I ask you, does Wake County Public Schools approve and recommend the following material that I'll read in these 3 passages? And although I'm going to shorten the foul language for the benefit of all of us, I want you to know that all the words are written out in full in the text. I quote, "Placing her knee between my legs, she wrestled off her sweater and unbuttoned her blouse and pulled off her panties, and she climbed on top of me before I even had a chance to savor the moment. I'm not saying that I wasn't grateful. To this day, I remain grateful to Gina, or whatever whim or combination of alcohol and restlessness prompted her to unbutton my jeans and straddle me in the passenger seat of that car." End quote. I quote, "No, it was risky, but it wasn't dumb. That's what I'm trying to say. Sucking D-word is dumb. D-words are dirty, dude. Really dirty. Mine sure is. Maybe you ought to wash it." Unquote. And quote, "GD, effing C-word, F-word, S-word, A-word, effer," I yelled. I flailed and stomped my boot in disgust as a dollop of S-word hit the sliding glass door. "S-word, effing mother of F. F you," I said. So let me ask, if one of your colleagues uttered those words at the school district office, would that constitute a hostile work environment? If you uttered those words at your place of employment, would the HR department have something to say on the matter? If a student uttered those words in class, how would you, as board members, expect the teacher to respond? We have a responsibility to protect and to safeguard our children. Exposing them to obscene, sexually explicit, and pornographic material harms their physical and emotional health by normalizing the sexualization of children and stealing their innocence. Parents, not literary critics, should decide what and how our children are taught, especially with regard to human sexuality and sexual expression. I look forward to working with you on my appeal. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Chelsea Bartell. Chelsea Bartell.
Good evening. Thank you for your attention to public comments and for your work as board members. My name is Dr. Chelsea Bartle. I'm a licensed psychologist and parent of 2 Wake County students. I have been continuously impressed by the work our public educators, specialized instructional support personnel, and staff are doing in the face of inadequate funding from our state legislature, reduced staffing, and ever-increasing demands. First, thank you for continuing to support masking requirements. There is no scientific evidence to support claims that children and adolescents are psychologically harmed by wearing masks. The problem is not the masks. The problem is the pandemic and our response to the stress, fear, and grief it brings us. I ask that you facilitate transparency and reduce anxiety in the community by improving management and communication of Wake County COVID data. Students and educators deserve timely, accurate data presented in a clear, easily accessible format with graphs. Collecting the data is undoubtedly a huge task, but the data are useless if they cannot be quickly summarized to inform decision-making. I also request clear communication regarding the status of PCR testing in schools. Given the degree of spread in our schools right now, it is safe to assume that many of our students and staff are in contact with people who have COVID every time they go to school. I'm troubled by reports of long delays in receiving pool results and follow-up testing, all while those in positive pools are still expected to report. I hope you can encourage the district to develop a plan for flattening the curve in our schools, maybe using rapid tests for positive pools or requiring follow-up negative tests to return, which I know in the board meeting, your work session was discussed. Finally, as a parent of a student with an IEP that is out of compliance due to a specialist's resignation, I urge you to work for timely communication with all families of identified children. Many parents across the district are likely unaware that their children's IEPs are out of compliance, and these students are afforded legal protections to ensure they can receive the specially designed instruction and related supports they require to access the curriculum. I know today I was told by the EC person I communicated with that there are, for example, 11 open speech-language pathologist positions countywide and no applications for those positions. And then I was told that it's the principal's responsibility to communicate to parents that students' IEPs are out of compliance, which maybe that could be reconsidered because that's a lot for a principal to explain and communicate. If Wake cannot hire educators and specialists for the increasing vacant positions, families must be informed that these services are not being provided and must be given guidance as quickly as possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Bartle. Next speaker is Jessica Lewis.
Good evening again. I have shared many of my personal family stories of what masking isolation in school has been like for my children through this pandemic. I have emailed y'all with questions and concerns only to get one response back from Karen Carter. She always comes back with the same answer as we do not make these decisions, but does nothing to offer direction. My last email was asking y'all to provide your medical license, and if you could not, you have no legal authority to deny my son's doctor's order stating he should not wear a mask in school at any time. I have a hard time believing that if you have the authority to vote on whether or not our children wear masks, that you do not have the authority to approve a mask exemption. This is where the inconsistency lies within our failing school system. You continue to keep passing the buck in a circle and never give parents a direct answer to our questions. Now time to share specific scientific evidence. Yes, Jim Martin, I said scientific evidence that masks do not prevent transmission. A May 2020 study on COVID published by the U.S. CDC found that face masks had no effect, neither as personal protective equipment or as a source control. A Danish controlled study with 6,000 participants found no significant effect of high-quality medical face masks against COVID infection in a community setting. The Oxford Center of Evidence-Based Medicine found that there is no evidence for the effectiveness of face masks against virus infection or transmission. New England Journal of Medicine came to the conclusion that face masks offer little to no protection in everyday life. A German professor who studies viruses found that there is no evidence for the effectiveness of face masks and that the improper daily use of masks by the public lead to an increase in infections. An analysis by the U.S. CDC found that 85% of people infected that wearing a mask did not reduce the risk of infection. In January 2021, the German state of Bavaria was one of the first places in the world to mandate N95 masks, indicating that these masks made no difference in the spread of COVID. A study by the British Medical Journal found that masks were penetrated by 97% of particles and increased infection risk by retaining moisture. Austria was the first country in January 2021 to introduce an N95 mask mandate at the national level. The mandate was further expanded in September, and by November, they reported the highest infection rate in the world. I can go on with scientific scientific evidence that states how masks do not prevent the spread of this virus. But will you listen, or will you choose to ignore the science once again? You are masking our children for no reason. In fact, you are harming them and suppressing their natural immunity by forcing these masks on our children. We are counting on the days till November 8th when we can get elected officials on this board who have a backbone to stand up for what's right for our children. Until then, please ask yourself why you continue to keep harming our children instead of helping them.
Thank you. I have been informed that our timer is not working, so I will keep track of it here, and I will give a 30-second visual warning, and my apologies for that. Our next speaker is Bruce Forster.
I think I'm sitting on the wrong side of the room. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I, as well as many others, have been before the board previously pleading with you to unmask our kids. We have shared with you that multiple studies have concluded that cloth masks are ineffective at stopping the spread of COVID. Unfortunately, that did not seem to matter to you. However, masks are effective at spreading fear. They also make it difficult for young kids to learn to speak, starve kids of needed oxygen to perform well, hinder socialization, and contribute to depression, and even have been a factor in driving up teen suicide. By the way, no Wake County public school kids died of COVID in 2020, and I don't think that changed in 2021. An otherwise healthy child has a 1 in a million chance of dying from COVID, but I digress. This board has not seemed to care that masks cause more harm than they do good. You have sat here dispassionately and perhaps even disinterested in what is best for our kids. Now, I think I know why. I recently came across a provision in the American Rescue Plan Act passed into federal law in March 2021 that requires that schools continue to mask kids in order to receive ESSER 3 funding. ESSER stands for the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Fund. What is more, it appears that North Carolina's Department of Public Instruction's plan for use of the ESSER funds includes multiple methods of mitigating COVID, including universal and correct wearing of masks. So my question to the board this evening is, are you required to keep our kids masked in order to receive funding? If so, for how long are you required to mask our kids? You see, according to the Wake County Public School website, Wake County Public Schools is to receive approximately $214 million in ESSER 3 funding. Are you selling out our kids' welfare and education for additional funding? We have a right to know. If the funding ties your hands from doing the right thing, give the money back. Do not put funding ahead of our kids' well-being. Even if not legally, you are morally accountable for your actions, and the voters will hold you accountable on November 8th.
Our next speaker is Lindsay Tobin.
Thank you. And just to address Dr. Martin's comments earlier, COVID is not going away. That's all the indication. So if that's how you guys feel about masks, then are you saying that we're going to be wearing masks forever in our schools? That is a question that needs to be answered. And if masks don't block all the virus but block the flow, the same principle would apply for the oxygen and CO2. Now to address the tweet and picture that the NC Democrats put out this week. It was very offensive to the parents that come here and disagree with you guys. No one denounced it. Ms. Scott and Dr. Martin liked it. This is a nonpartisan position. You guys represent all of us. You should be embarrassed about that. And I hope more parents go and look at it. We come here, now let's talk about the misinformation that tweet spoke about. We come to advocate for masks optional because masks do not stop the spread of COVID-19. If it were true they worked, I don't think we would have such a high rate of positive tests in schools and community among people who are wearing these masks and vaxxed 3 times. Furthermore, the former FDA Commissioner, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, stated on January 2nd on Face the Nation, I quote, "A cloth mask is not going to protect you from a virus that spreads through airborne transmission," end quote. So why are we still forcing this on our children? We know the negative effects of masks have for learning, especially in young children, the anxiety. And I hope that you guys do not go on the other extreme and try to put kids in N95 mask for 7 to 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Kids and parents will speak out against this. Next bit of misinformation. The vaccine will stop you from getting sick or transmission of the virus. Obviously, we see triple vax testing positive on January 10th. On CNN, the CDC director, Rochelle Walensky, stated, I quote, "Our vaccines are working exceptionally well. They continue to work well for Delta with regard to severe illness and death. What they can't do anymore is prevent transmission," end quote. So why are we updating guidance that treats vaccinated and unvaccinated differently and discriminates against unvaccinated children if both transmit the virus? Next piece of misinformation, child hospitalizations are overcounted. Many of us have stated that referencing child hospitalization rate does not differentiate between hospitalized because of COVID or with COVID. On December 30th, Dr. Fauci stated on MSNBC, I quote, "If you look at the children hospitalized, many of them are hospitalized with COVID as opposed to because of COVID. If a child goes into the hospital, they are automatically tested for COVID and will get counted as a COVID hospitalization individual when in fact they may go in for a broken leg, so it's overcounting the number of children," end quote. Lastly, PCR tests are not accurate. On December 29th, Rochelle Walensky stated, I quote, "We know that PCR tests can stay positive for up to 12 weeks, end quote. Given that us parents have been correct on many of these COVID issues, I ask that you please realize that we have the best interests of our children at heart, and the parents are the correct authority to make health decisions for our children. Children should not continue to bear the burden of this virus for the adults. We ask that you make masks, vaccines, and testing optional going forward. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Becky Lou Hobbs.
Hi, I'm Becky Lou Hobbs. I'm a 16-year resident in District 4, and I've been a Wake County resident for much, much longer than that. At the special board meeting last week, one of the candidates spoke about how parents want to be heard and acknowledged. He's correct, we do. Because the board did not respond to my emailed concerns for the past couple of years, I started coming to the board meetings. Here, I met other parents with similar grievances to mine. Also at this special meeting, the board asked questions to the candidates. One of those questions called those of us who speak vocal groups. The one reading the question laughed, and that was followed by the board laughing. Why is the board calling those of us who exercise our right to voice our public comments and concerns and then laugh at us? It's disrespectful. And then there was a January 4th board meeting where the chair, without any kind of policy or reasoning, reduced total attendance to 30 people, including the board. This room here is about 3,200 square feet. When you do the math, and with proper social distancing, that's about 90 people in the room. But during this meeting, your board, you're sitting just like that. The press was like they are. There's actually more press than there are today. The rest of this room was empty, and only 7 people were allowed in it. That's just, I can't. Your actions show that you do not listen to parents. Your actions show that you don't want us here. But let me remind you, November 8th is coming. You are elected representatives of us. You work for us. Now, I'm going to address the elephant in the room. There was a board member appointed last week. I don't see him here, and I saw that the swearing-in ceremony was canceled, and there hasn't been a reason given. So last week you appointed a member. I understand that's policy. It was stated by several board members that during the meeting that candidates must be a resident of District 4. But it appears Mr. Artis is not. His voter registration, business registration, puts him in District 1. I was wanting to hear somebody address this before we even got here. So not only did District 4 people not get a chance to actually elect our representative, the board chose somebody who appears to not be a resident. I'm tired of the inadequacies, and the incompetence. We want transparency from the board. We, the public, the parents, these are our children. They're so precious to us. We want to trust you with our children. You violated it. Provide proof of Mr. Artis's residency immediately if you plan to proceed to appoint him to District 4. And residency as in now, not he plans to move there sometime soon.
Thank you. Our next speaker
Stop
is
ignoring
Renee
us.
Seckel.
Stop calling us names. Thank you.
Renee Seckel.
Good evening. I've been coming to these board meetings a lot. People say a lot of stuff here. Most of the time when people come to the meetings, I sit in the audience and I listen, and I might have an opinion on somebody else's opinion, but I keep silent. It's all part of the democratic process, and I know that. People will say whatever they're going to say. But recently there's been a thread underlying a lot of the comments here, and last week it was finally made explicit, and I can no longer stay silent. Apparently, it's now fashionable to bully some of the most vulnerable people in our society in an attempt to score political points. In the past year, we've seen our Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson, say awful, hateful things about gay and trans people, sometimes while our Superintendent of Public Instruction, Catherine Truitt, has stood serenely by his side and said not a word in protest. Here in Wake County, we've seen months and months of attempts to rip books out of the hands of our children, accusing Wake County of disseminating so-called pornography when what they really mean is there are books with LGBTQIA characters. And finally, again, as I said at the last meeting, somebody made the implicit awfully, terribly explicit. Someone stood up here and accused trans children of having a serpent spirit, repeating over and over again that these children are evil. She received a round of applause from this audience. So let me be crystal clear. No kid deserves to be bullied in school, but particularly not trans and non-binary children. We know that when trans and non-binary kids are isolated, when they're told that the books that contain characters like them are obscene, when they are deprived of warm, accepting adults in their lives, it harms their mental health. These behaviors by adults are not without consequences to our children. It is morally reprehensible for politicians to try to score points on the backs of our children, and it is far, far beyond the pale for grown adults to stand in public and call children evil and be applauded for it. To any gay, trans, or non-binary kids who may be listening, there is nothing wrong with you. You are a unique, irreplaceable human being who deserves to be loved unconditionally by the adults in your life. You deserve to be loved and enjoyed not in spite of who you are, but because of who you are. I will repeat, there is nothing wrong with you. I'm sorry so many adults see fit to make you feel otherwise.
Excuse me, ma'am. Sorry, Ms. Eckel. You've been very vocal during public comment and board comment. We're going to be respectful of everyone's time. We are all passionate about our children and our education here. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Russell Lichtenstein.
You listen to us? I don't think so.
Russell Lichtenstein.
The power trip.
Hello, everyone. Brought my speech this time. Finally got some a little personal. Spoke with Roxy, who's not here tonight, which was nice. Brought a little personal touch to it. Got an email from Miss Mahaffey finally, which was nice. Could be the start of a beautiful friendship. A couple of things I'd like to bring attention to. The CEO of Pfizer said that the vaccines offer little to no protection for the Omicron. And it's also my understanding that that's the only one available for children. He mentioned that one wouldn't be ready until March. And based on what I've been reading and listening to and so forth, most likely by that time, Omicron will be gone. So it kind of renders that moot if I'm reading that correctly. I think we're kind of missing the forest through the trees here. You know, everybody's forgetting the natural laws of viruses and, you know, how they transmit. And I think I heard Dr. Martin talk about, you know, the flu. I think I heard he actually mentioned the word context, which was nice to hear. I said this last time I was here. I know more people now who've had COVID. You know, it's pretty much you could flip-flop it with the flu, I think. I had it. I know more people now that have had it in the last month than the entire 2 years of this disease. We're all going to get it, and in order to achieve herd immunity, that's how you do it. And the vaccines are to supplement natural immunity. No one mentions natural immunity ever. The brief Dr. Mashonga I heard today never mentions that. It's all fealty to the vaccine. That is dangerous. That is scary. It's all vaccine, no natural immunity, no therapeutics, no early treatment. You have to question that. Where's the critical thinking in that? It's all lacking. Whether it's you folks, whether it's my doctor who said, go take some aspirin or some Tylenol, ibuprofen or Tylenol, and basically good luck. Thank God I had some therapeutics in my pocket to go home to. I purchased some for my parents because God forbid they get a booster that does nothing for this Omicron. These are the kind of common sense things that we're forgetting about. My kids are already had it. I'm just tired of it. They need to take the masks off. Common sense needs to prevail. We've lost sight of it. COVID is going to be over within a month. That's what I'm hearing. Mark my words. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Chad Stahl. Chad Stahl.
You guys got served. That's fun. Yes, I'm trying to wrap my head around. I brought something, Karen Carter, Jim Martin, you guys are asking some stuff today from our Department of Health regarding some statistics and stuff like that. And I don't know why they don't tell you what they print on their website. I don't know why you're too lazy to do it yourselves, but I brought a copy of it. I'm going to hand it in to homeboy here. So I want to point out a couple things. The first thing, so this is the Public Health Epidemiologist Network. If you're paying attention, then you know exactly what this is, right? And you'll find really cool statistics like what percentage of people tested for the virus that causes COVID-19. So there's this high bar, right? And positivity test is like 13, 14%. This is the most recent one they have. Omicron, Dr. Tilson has already publicly stated it takes 2 to 3 weeks to determine whether it's Omicron or Delta or whatever. So just because it goes high and you go, oh, it must be Omicron, it means you're just a media junkie and you're not patient enough to wait and find out. So, cool your jets. There's also another fun graph in here that says, okay, this is the pandemic of the unvaccinated. The pandemic, yeah, right? Yeah. So almost 40% of the most recent reported cases are vaccinated people. So if it's almost 40% of the spreaders are the ones getting injected, why are people that are a little conscientious and a little concerned about getting it, why are they doing this? So I think to myself, if all of this data is readily available, what is going on in your minds? And then I got this great email from Miss Scott, right? You're Miss Scott. Hi, nice to meet you. I think I've seen stuff online. I think your schools on the academic level are extremely low, but you wrote this email. Thank you for your email. I do recognize there are people who disagree with the reasoning behind masking while transmission of COVID is high. I understand you are choosing to listen to doctors, this is the best part, who do not share the beliefs of the WHO, CDC, NCDHHS, and the ABC Science Collaborative. So then it all started to sink. I was like, oh, this is about belief. That's what this is. This is about belief. This is about your belief. This is about the belief of some drug or some pharmaceutical, or maybe you're into CNN, the housing authority for pedophiles. So I am the county commissioners. Yeah, okay. The county commissioners, their ordinance gives very clear guidance and is very specific that says that, you know what, you will not interpret their order to defy the state of North Carolina's Constitution or the federal Constitution. Oh, thank you, yeah. So I'm just curious, if you don't have to listen to the county commissioners, if you don't have to listen to the legislators, if you don't have to listen to the parents, who are you listening to?
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sue Barnett.
Hello. Thank you for letting me speak. I'd like to say that I feel a great deal of sympathy for all the parents who have concerns regarding the pandemic disruptions, the masks, the mental health. Both of my children and extended family have similar stories. There are currently 4,000 people in hospitals fighting COVID in North Carolina today, and some of them may die, and some of them may suffer long-lasting effects of COVID. If you and I fight against COVID, if you and I fight against each other, COVID wins. The longer the virus is alive, it will morph into new variants and spread. Some of you believe, well, most of you, believe that the school board is being overly cautious. Maybe we need that to end this pandemic. Perhaps we're asking too much of schools. Scores are down. But how can we as parents help our kids learn within our homes and our neighborhoods? Kids need to play more. How can we as parents get kids to socialize in small groups outside of school? I like to learn from history. In the early days of World War II, thousands of Allied troops were stranded in France, and Britain didn't have enough ships to rescue the trapped men that were being pushed by the Nazis to the beaches of Dunkirk. Local British citizens risked their lives in their boats to cross the English Channel and help save 330,000 soldiers. They were neighbors who looked past their own comfort to save their country. And that is what we are being asked to do right now. And we might differ in our opinions, but personally, I don't want to see another friend die. And I don't want to see another child or grandpa or mama die from COVID. One is too many.
Our next speaker is Susan Book.
Thank you, School Board and Superintendent Moore. And a very special thank you to the staff that was meeting my needs today and my accommodations to be here and keeping me safe, and just make sure that they know that they did an amazing job. My name is Susan Book. I'm a public school advocate and a parent living here in Wake County. We've heard the term learning loss tossed around. We've connected it to virtual learning. However, learning loss can happen just as easily in person. Students with disabilities not getting their IEP services or even getting their IEP in the first place can have learning loss. It can happen to students who get targeted for suspensions. Learning loss can happen when students can't get to school due to busing issues. It also happens when we rely on substitutes. I know that the governor has released state employees to serve. However, as a former state employee, I know I would not be your sub. I could do a mean travel reimbursement, group, international, domestic. I can write an excellent department budget and help with a federal grant. But I certainly didn't belong in front of a classroom, except maybe to change a projector light bulb. I hope we don't view virtual as an evil, but as a tool in our toolbox, albeit a very limited one. A tool that can be useful in the future and now. I'm hoping we can be proactive in getting out virtual plans to parents and especially students. I hope we continue to work with students who've experienced learning loss, but with the mindset it occurs both in and out of in-person learning. And I hope we don't view virtual as an evil, but as a limited tool in our toolbox for safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Amanda Horlebine. And Ms. Horlebine, just so you know, our buzzer isn't working, so when there are 30 seconds left, I'm going to do my best to hold this up. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Amanda Hullabine. I'm here tonight because there are 294 days until Election Day. Approximately 80% of the population are parents, and I want to talk about how this board views parents. I'm sure most people are familiar with this recent tweet by the Wake Democratic Party. Notably, both Jim and Heather liked this tweet. It reads, "Shout out to Lindsay, Monica, Christine, Haggerty, Heather, and Jim for caring about our kids and showing courage, grace, and patience while facing misinformation, lies, threats, and bad behavior from Wake County parents and citizens." Parents are confused about what courage has been shown. Courage to uphold the state and federal constitution, courage to be nonpartisan as required, courage to strive for excellence in education, courage to address learning loss, courage to open a dialogue with parents, thereby disseminating any parent-teacher board tension, courage to show parents respect by keeping your eyes open, Kathy Moore, and refrain from tweeting during public comment, Jim Martin. You know what this tweet tells me? It tells me that this is what Wake Democrats and this board think about dissenting parents. It shows the heart of Wake Democrats and this board. Wake County School Board believes parents who advocate for their children are crazy conspiracy theorists. I don't really see a resemblance here. Wake County Board believes parents who support America, the South, or Republicans are threatening. This school board believes that parents who choose not to put an experimental drug in their child spread misinformation. This school board believes parents should embrace CRT, which says all white children are born oppressors and therefore should hate themselves, while all black children cannot succeed because they are inherently oppressed. This board should focus on educating all children regardless of color, so that each child is prepared to be a productive member of society upon graduation. This board believes dissenting parents incite riots and insurrection. The actual problem with Wake County parents is the presence of this school board. We are all counting down 294 days until change can happen. If you are tired of arbitrary rule changes and a lottery public meeting, we will be across the street February 1st at 5:30. We will not have a lottery. You are open to speak. We'll be streaming with the media. You can find this group on Facebook, or you can email wcpssboepop@gmail.com. Thank you for your time.
Brian Persak.
Thank you. I'm a veteran, voter, taxpayer, but most importantly, I'm a father. My dad taught me what that means to be my father, and my mother taught me what it means to fight for what I believe in. And Jim, you mentioned none of this has to do with fear. I disagree. Fear, it makes people do and say things they would never accept in normal situations. What makes a school board and a county not listen to people who told them last year that these cloth masks were not working? Fear. Cary dropped their mask mandate months ago, but we are told we have to wear them to the meeting when no one is even close to 6 feet. Look around. Fear. What would cause a school board and county to outsource their decision-making authority to an unelected, unaccountable organization? Fear. What makes ABC Collaborative, Duke, and WRAL push a headline that 50% of transmissions occur during sports? Fear. The headline should have read, "Transmission during sports incredibly low. Only 3 cases. Play ball." By the way, ABC, Duke, NIH, why 0 recommendations of adding an extra gym class or workout program at schools? The #1 comorbidity is obesity. All parents and teachers could have gotten behind this, but why didn't we? Fear. 51% of Democrats, 28% of Republicans think the chance of being hospitalized from COVID is 50% or more. Reality is as low as 1%. Fear. Driving your car with 2 masks on by yourself. Fear. What would cause someone to post a picture of parents who care about their children as uneducated slobs? Fear. Was their goal to embarrass or shame us as parents? I hate to tell you, I just bought an adult scooter and walkie-talkies so I can ride around my neighborhood. Do you think that picture would embarrass me? Fear. What I would be afraid of is what got served to you earlier today, and hope that your bonding holds up in court. You're not going to be able to claim that you didn't know that there's been a 50% increase in suicide rates amongst children, a 31% increase in ER mental health visits in adolescents. I'm a Christian, so I believe in forgiveness and redemption. But as a parent, I will not forget. Hope. Find it in your children, find it in your daily lives. Find it in the people willing to speak on your behalf. We need you, parents and grandparents. I'm willing to dance, but the most important people are the ones willing to stand up and dance with me. Reach out. We can show you. Some of you are not ready, and that's okay. Some of you will trash me, and that's okay too. Just know when you're ready to talk, I'm here to listen. And I'll end it real quick on this from my favorite artist.
Thank you, sir.
It's been a long, hard ride, but I won't
Joyce.
lose hope. This is still the place that we all call home.
Joyce. Thank you.
Good evening, school board members and Superintendent Moore. Thank you for all your hard work and commitment to the students, staff, and families of Wake County. Okay. My name is Cecilia Joyce. I'm a middle school AIG and intervention teacher. I have taught in Wake County Public Schools for 21 years. I am also a product of Wake County Schools, and as are my two daughters, and I could not be more proud to work here. I would like to begin my comments with a quick anecdote that fairly well sums up the last few weeks of school. Recently, I entered a classroom where my role was as intervention co-teacher. One of the students asked me, "Are you our teacher today? Where is our teacher?" The amazing educator who normally teaches that class was absent. She was absent because of COVID. Thankfully, I was there as a co-teacher and was familiar with that day's lesson. In most classes with an absent educator, a substitute, someone who teaches a different content area on their planning time, or an administrator or a central office worker is filling in. That class time will not be a normal class. The students will have many of these types of classes all day and have for the past weeks because of COVID. We have normalized this, and we have all stepped up to help each other because that's what we do. But it's been at a cost to rigor, to academic expectations, and to student and staff emotional health. This would be fine or okay if it were just one day or 1 week. But educators and children are resilient, but it has been weeks. The problem has persisted to some degree for months. It is not sustainable for any of us, and I don't want to imply that there is not a lot of learning going on. There is. There are wonderful things happening in our schools, as always. But with fully staffed schools, our educators and students are able to be most successful. This is a statewide and nationwide problem, and I and many other staff would like to know what this school board and school system plans to do to attract and retain educators and critical school staff during this challenging time and in the future. We very much appreciate the bonuses, truly, and the raises in pay for our education support professionals. These are a wonderful, great start, but we also recognize that the issue needs resolution at the state level and with supportive actions by our General Assembly. And believe me that myself and others will be active and organized on that front. To transition to my second topic of comment, I'll return to the intervention class I mentioned earlier. After entering the class, I began my lesson, and the co-teacher and I had planned, which was about the life and work of Cesar Chavez, the famous labor organizer and civil rights leader. As we examined the fiery and inspirational Commonwealth Club address that Chavez gave in 1984, I found myself becoming emotional because it spoke to me in so many ways. The students got a lot out of it too, but maybe different things because of our different, unique perspectives. At the beginning of the speech, Chavez describes the discrimination, humiliation, abuses, exploitation, and violence and voter suppression experienced by Latinos in urban and rural environments.
Your time has expired.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I do want to take a moment and that is the end of our public comment. Thanks to all of you who came to speak today. I do want to say that we are following the outline policy 3210, objection to instructional materials, that will be going forward. And I can say personally, I reached out to members and I know other board members have reached out to the people who produced that tweet that was presented to us in concern over it. Our next piece is to approve the items on the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I move approval of our consent items as listed.
Second. All right, we have a motion from Ms. Kushner, a second from Ms. Carter. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, sign of aye. Any opposed, nay? All right, we now move on to our action item. So board members, our legislative agenda, which we spoke about in our last work session, has been reframed due to the commentary heard at the work session. And so we wanted to take a moment to look through it, discuss it. This was sent to you prior to this being uploaded into Assembly so that we could have additional time. And so if there is any questions or concerns, I do believe we need a motion and a second before we can enter discussion.
Chair Mahaffey?
Yes,
I would
sir.
move that we adopt the revised legislative agenda.
Second. Okay, we have a motion from Vice Chair Hagerty, a second by Dr. Martin. And so discussion on this updated 2022 policy and agenda. Ms. Scott?
I just had a question. I'm not sure if it was how it was uploaded into Assembly, but just the formatting. There's a few, not a space after the colon of like K3 class size. So I wasn't sure if that was just the way it appears on my computer, or if that's, but there is a space on other, after it, and under recruitment and retention, there's a space after pay, diversity, and benefits. So I just wanted to bring that up just for the purpose of it looking nice and neat.
Yes. And I'm sure our communication staff hears that, and if there's anything that can be done with that formatting, they will attend to it. Vice Chair Hagerty.
Thank you. And nobody on the board has any objections to spacing or formatting corrections necessary at this time without it having to come back, is it right?
We can proceed without, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. I just wanted to thank everybody for their comments and all the feedback that we had in work session to produce an updated legislative agenda. I think a lot of the changes really reflect a lot of the discussion we've had and a lot of the shared values we have. I'm particularly proud that we're specifically calling out the AIG funding and special education funding that needs addressing, that has gone underfunded for so long. And I also look forward to us using this not just with our state legislators, but also with our federal congressional delegation who will vote on things like IDEA funding, and then also with our county commissioners and others that are interested in the government policies that impact our schools. So I do want to, again, thank everybody who contributed to the document. I think there's a lot of good improvements here, and I recommend it to everyone, and I hope everyone finds it as good as I do.
Thank you. Their comments? Okay. I do want to thank our communications team who went, and our team from the policy side of things who went back over that work session and filled this out and tried to capture what they heard us say and compare it with their notes. And thank you to my colleagues for your insight and thoughts as we move forward with this new legislative agenda. With that, all those in favor of adopting our 2022 legislative policy and agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Thank you. We will now move on to closed session.
Chairman
Yes, sir.
I'd like to move at this time that the board go into closed session to consider confidential personnel information protected under GS 143, 318.11, A1, A3, and A6, to consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in GS 143, 318.11, A3 due to current litigation, CC by and through his parents SC and MC versus Wake County Board of Education, 21 Eastern District, 05061. And finally, to consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided for in General Statute 143, 318.11, A3.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Chair Hegarty, a second by Ms. Kushner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are moving into closed session. Thank you all for coming in and tuning into our regularly scheduled board meeting once again.